North Carolina legitimately can still make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team, but by the skin of their chin. But folks, the margin for error is razor thin. What's it going to take? Coach Pac Kilby and I are about to unpack it for you.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me is our guy, Coach Pac Kilby, who is on the eve of starting his own state playoffs in the state of Oklahoma for Carl Albert. Best of luck, Coach, to you and the ladies as you start this trek. This episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Coming up on the show, we're going to give you our W2, W4, the what to watch for in the game tonight at Notre Dame. And we're going to have our unPACking it segment with Coach Pac, where we talk about what would you have changed if you were Hubert Davis. But first, we want to get into this conversation to discuss what it's going to take for North Carolina to make the tournament as an at-large team. Obviously, if they win the ACC tournament, they're in, so we don't need to bother with that. But as an at-large, is it still possible for North Carolina to get in? Let's dive into that. So there are 4 regular season games left. Tonight, Wednesday at Notre Dame, Saturday versus Virginia, next Monday at FSU. That's a tough, quick turnaround. And then next Saturday, senior night at home versus Duke. And so, Pac, we've got these 4 games left. As you look at it, there's 2 quad 3 games. Unfortunately, both those road games are quad 3s. That's a tough thing to do. But Notre Dame, FSU not having great years, and then winning at home versus Virginia and Duke is kind of what's in the cards. What do you think as you look at this, North Carolina has to do combined between regular season and the ACC tournament to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team?
To me, I think that the magic number is 5. So between the regular season and the ACC tournament, they need to get 5 more. Preferably, I think the easiest thing to do, and just take it kind of out of the committee's hands per se, would be to beat Virginia. Now, I say that's not easy to do, but the best thing for us to do would be to win, get 2 more in the regular season, hopefully Duke, maybe tonight against Notre Dame, get 3 wins somehow in the regular season, and then a couple in the ACC tournament. But nonetheless, if we can hit that magic number of 5, I think we're in.
Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of talking about it in baseball terms there of like, hey, just win these. As I start to think about it and looking at if you're dropping something, say they win 3 of the final 4 regular season games and go 3-1. But that one loss is not Virginia or Duke. What if that one regular season loss is this Notre Dame game or the Florida State game, and then Carolina has a quad 3 loss on their resume? I mean, that is, for a team that already doesn't have a quad 1 win, to add a quad 3 loss would be very damaging. And so you got to hope, like, at least as I look at it, if Carolina is going to take another regular season loss, I feel like the only thing it can be is to Virginia or Duke. It seems like it would be very crippling to lose at Notre Dame or at Florida State, both of which are going to be incredibly tough. I mean, it's going to be an emotional environment at Notre Dame, wrapping up Mike Brey's tenure there. It's going to be super tough to go down to Tallahassee 2 days after playing Virginia, who, man, it's just 2 completely different styles of basketball. And then you fly down to North Florida. Like, I mean, are you with me on that? Do you think if Carolina takes a loss, it feels like it has to be Virginia or Duke in order to kind of stay in the running?
Yes, just to play devil's advocate, though.
Do it. That's why we're here.
My thought process is, if our loss is Notre Dame or Florida State, then that means we've beat Virginia and Duke, which is also, I mean, just the flip side of that is that's a significant boost in the right direction.
Yeah.
That gives us to my understanding, 2 quad 1 wins.
It would be, yep. Not quad 1A, unfortunately, which is like the top tier, but both quad 1 for sure.
Yeah. Which Tar Heel Nation right now we have none. So
none. Thanks a lot, Ohio State.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think I like that magic number of 5 though, because I feel like if Carolina can go undefeated the rest of the regular season, like win out these 4 games, which would be awesome, I still think they need one NCAA tournament, or excuse me, ACC tournament win. Like, I don't think those, like, going 4-0 down the stretch alone is enough. Like, in order to feel comfortably, safely in, I'm with you. I think it's got to be 5. And it's got to be the right 5, I think, is another part of it too. If Carolina goes 2-2 in these 4 games, again, depending on who those 2 wins and 2 losses are against, is that it? You think it's done regardless outside of winning the auto bid?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think you cannot take more than 1 regular season loss and still have hopes of getting an at-large berth. It's just, and I know it's crazy to even think about that. Like, it seems like Carolina should already be done and out. But when you look at all the bracketology, they're sitting right there at first 4 out. Just about everywhere I've looked. And so that to me says you legitimately can play your back into this thing. And so I think that's a real possibility. Now, Pac, the question becomes, have you seen anything to make you believe that they can do that, can pick up those 5 magic number victories?
Honestly, no. I'm pretty discouraged, with the things are trajecting right now. Now,
why is that? Explain that discouragement to me.
To me, I just feel like we've been battling the same inconsistencies all year long, like the same problems. We haven't improved. We haven't found new problems that we need to overcome. It's just been the same stuff. And I shared it on the last podcast. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
And then you texted me that after the NC State game too.
I did. And it felt the same way. We have the same problems. We can't ever maintain a lead. We never consistently value our shots. We get selfish at times, and our bench still doesn't have a true rotation, and it's not their fault. It's Coach Davis's fault that he hasn't established that by now. And it just feels like the same things bite us in the rear every single game. So no, I don't have any confidence in it, to be honest with you. What about you?
I do and I don't. There's nothing to tell me that they should put it into gear. But there was also nothing to tell me that they should put it into gear last year when they did. Now, as we've talked about over and over again, and I think people are finally starting to agree with us, Pac. Like, you and I have been hammering this. I know it's just one different person, but the difference in what Brady Manek did for this team and Pete Nance does for this team is worlds apart. And it's not because Pete is bad or Brady is good. It's just the way their skill sets fit individually with this group and how they complement each other. And I just think that hasn't found its comfortability yet with Pete. I'm still speculating on this idea of, like, if Pete Nance was healthy, like if his back was healthy, if RJ's index finger hadn't been messed up at the beginning and again now, like, would we be looking at different things? Would we have 3, 4, 5 more wins than we do? I think that's something legit to reckon with. But no, to directly answer your question, I don't see anything right now either that tells me they can string that together. Am I hopeful? Yes. Do I think it, like, I would put it at a greater than 50% chance that they don't do it. But I also think I think it's greater than 30% chance that they do it. But because it's like, I do think the talent is there, and that's what keeps me up at night right now, is like the pieces are there. You just got to do it. You got to put it in place. So whether we can speculate all we want, but we're going to see how it plays out tonight starting in South Bend, because you got to start right there. By the way, we want to know from you folks, everyone listening and watching this thing, what do you think? What is it going to take for Carolina in these remaining games to make the NCAA tournament? And do you see in them the capability to do so? We'd love for you to share with us your thoughts on it. Well, coming up in just a second, we are going to preview that Notre Dame game by doing our W2, W4, our what to watch for. And we'll do that in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, it's super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Pac Kilby, North Carolina at Notre Dame tonight, Wednesday in South Bend, Indiana, right there inside Purcell Pavilion, 9 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Listen, things have unfortunately fallen apart for the Irish. They are 10-17 overall and 2-14 in what is a not great ACC conference this year. Simply put, North Carolina cannot afford to lose this basketball game. Notre Dame has lost 5 straight and 9 of their last 10. And so the Tar Heels have to come in and go to work right out. And that one win in their last 10 games, Pack, any guesses over as to who that is?
Louisville.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And so that's their only win in their last 10 games. Of course, Clemson couldn't pull that together. So, there is that. But that's just a little Clemson shade right there. This has been Throwing Shade, brought to you by Isaac Shade. So, Pac, what we want to do is unpack our W2, W4, the what to watch for. Let me start here. Number one, this is I'm imagining everyone is aware of this, but let's not assume it. Mike Brey is leaving Notre Dame after this year. And so thankfully, this is not his last home game, because that would be a whole ball of wax you don't want to mess with. That'll be Pittsburgh next week. But this is Notre Dame's next to last home game with Mike Brey at the helm. Now, Pac, you have some unique insight into this, because this year you have transitioned from one school to another yourself. And so if you could, take me inside your own mindset of the last night or the next, the final games before you get ready to transition. What kind of mood and spirit and emotional energy do we expect to see in this thing?
Well, there's going to be, I don't know how much it'll be from the fans and stuff, but as far as the team, there's a lot of emotions that go into it, because he's poured his heart and soul into that for years, and it's coming to an end. And although it's not the last game, it's the next to last. So you start to savor that a little bit more, and start to just the little stuff, like that walk from your office to the court, or from the locker room to the court. It starts to feel just a little bit different, so maybe you slow down and enjoy it a little bit more. But I'll tell you this too, you prepare a little bit different. But the way it ends, you want it to end on a high note, and you want to make sure you've done your part to make sure that you go out the right way, So, and I think for the most part, the kids will want to do that too. So don't think for one second that those guys aren't sitting up there going, "Hey, North Carolina's coming to town and it's winding down for Coach Brey. Let's go do this thing," because we're going to take their best shot.
That's right. And as North Carolina is hopefully not, but potentially thinking ahead to Virginia on Saturday, and that being the bigger game, you cannot discount how big these final closing games are for this Notre Dame group who wants to, like, let's win one more for coach kind of thing, as you're talking about there. And so Carolina has to be ready to go. Throw the record out. Don't look at 2-14 in the ACC. Look at Mike Brey, Notre Dame. This is a team that gives Carolina perennial trouble, especially up there. And so you got to be ready to go. And part of the reason Notre Dame perennially gives North Carolina trouble is what to watch for. Number 2, the Tar Heels have to contain the homie Nate Laszewski. Nice job in the last matchup for the Tar Heels against him, but boy, he could be tougher at home and can go off at any moment against North Carolina. Pac, what do the Tar Heels need to do against a guy that we hoped last offseason might transfer down to Chapel Hill?
Yeah, well, for one, got to give him a dose of Leaky Black and, let him do his thing. But to me, I think we've got to be consistent in keeping him in front and them in front in general, forcing them to shoot over the top, forcing them to shoot long, tough twos, and not allow any second chances. I think of course, those things are way easier said than done.
Much.
We can do those things, do them most of the time. We'll put ourselves in a good spot.
Yeah, and it's not Laszewski, even though he didn't have an awesome game last time, still scored 17 against Carolina, and so it's like, hey man, you got to do this. And these teams that don't play big, like going into the Miami game, you thought, oh man, here comes Norchad Omier. Armando's going to have his way against this undersized big. Not so. And that's something to reckon with against Notre Dame as well. And so I think that's the biggest thing. If Carolina can keep down Nate Laszewski again, they should be in good shape. Speaking of Armando, man, these things are segueing beautifully tonight, Pac Kilby. Number 3 in our what to watch for, Armando Bacot. Folks, we're beating a dead horse at this point, but we're going to beat it until something comes out of it. Armando Bacot has to be the guy that North Carolina plays through early and often. It's not, he doesn't have to take an overwhelming number of field goal attempts. It's just he's got to have enough field goal attempts. For crying out loud, can it please lead the team for once? But also, even when he's not shooting, Carolina needs to be playing through him. And so cannot count the number of times I said this year, but I want to see Armando Bacot get a legitimate touch on every possession. And I know that might be like, whoa, that's wild and wacky. Well, at this point, you got to have wild and wacky because everything else isn't working. Pac, how can they make this happen?
I think you hit the nail on the head as far as making him a priority. That's step 1. And step 2 is they've got to, obviously, Notre Dame's going to key on him. They've got to throw some different looks to get him open. Maybe use him in the pick and roll game. Use him setting some screens on the perimeter and then concealing and pinning. And they've just got to give him some different options and get him moving around, things up. But the bottom line is, you're right. Nothing else is working. He's our best player. Get him the ball every time down the court. That doesn't mean it every time. It means we play through him, period. And I thought last year we had kind of found that as a pretty consistent identity. For whatever reason, we've lost that this year. It's not that it hasn't been there, but it hasn't been there consistently. So we need to get back to that, especially against Notre Dame. There's a clear advantage for Armando there, I think. Not just in size, but in ability. So we've got to take advantage of that and capitalize where we can. Will we? That's a major question mark.
That is a big question mark. And especially, we've seen it so often this year where, especially recently with North Carolina shooting so poorly, where teams just crash and collapse down on Mando, daring Pete Nance, daring Leaky Black to shoot. And so Carolina's got to figure out ways to unclog, declutter the lane and give Armando room to operate, whether it's shooting or moving the ball. The ball cannot be sticky, whether it's Mando or anyone else. And as you said, last time against Notre Dame had 21 and 13, had 17 shot attempt like that. I think, here's a good way to ask it, Pac. What do you think is the gold number of shot attempts for Mando in this game?
15.
15. That's the exact number I was thinking. Perfect. I'm right there with you. If Mando gets at least 15 shots in this game, I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Now, I want him to hit 15 of those 15, and that'd be awesome too. But anyway, fourth in our what to watch for, and Pac brought this one up, and I think it's so wise, is all this emotion, everything going on. I want to know, number 4, where is Carolina at mentally? Are they done mentally? I don't think that they are. And the things they say tell me they aren't. But how locked in are they, right? Like, and remember, these are 18 to 22-year-old men dealing with life and other things and outside noise and everything else. Can they rally themselves and circle the wagons for this 4-game stretch of the regular season, taking it one game, one half, 1 4-minute spurt, one play, literally one play at a time? I've got, as you said earlier, Pac, I've got to value the ball on this play. I've got to be in the right spot on this play. I've got to whatever on this play. What is my role? Execute that, and then on to the next play. Time after time after time. Are they in that mindset? Well, they had a team meeting after the Wake Forest game. We all remember that, right? They are 1-2 since then. It worked going into that Clemson game, but then they lost at home to Miami, and then on Sunday at NC State. Now, I'm not saying that means the team meeting didn't work, but clearly it didn't do enough. Not everything's there. Pac, where are you at on this mental thing? I mean, you were the one that brought this up. Are the Tar Heels done? Give me your thoughts.
At some point, rubber's got the road, and you nailed it on the head. They had the team meeting. They're saying the right things. I do think they care, but at some point your actions have to match what you're saying. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying we need to see it. Like, you know, I mean, you've talked about it. You've said the thing, you know, things that this needs to be fixed or this needs to be fixed or that, but show us now. It's time for rubber to meet the road. And so that's really what I'm looking for. And not just with like a select few, with all of them. I felt, you know, the bench energy hasn't been great this year like it always has been. And the ones on the court come out, they look disconnected from what's going on the court sometimes. And like just little things like that. I want to see all that be fixed. I want to see the play be fixed. And like you mentioned, do your job every time down the court. Obviously, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a mistake here or there. We know.
Absolutely.
But
that's life.
Yeah. But if they're striving for that, then we're taking steps in the right direction. And that's what I want to see. That to me is a huge key, especially in Notre Dame. This game is not about Notre Dame. We're the better team. This game is about us. Let's go do that. I'm curious to see if we will.
It's desperation time, and that's what makes me feel in a pretty good spot about that. Like Leaky Black is like, I'm not going out like this. Mando, whether this is it or not, like he's like, I didn't come back for this. We've heard him say that. Pete Nance, this is his one shot at making the NCAA tournament. Like, I feel like these guys are going to be dialed in, but we're going to have to see it in action, and we get to do that tonight. Well, our final conversation today, we're moving to our Unpacking It with Pac segment. I love these conversations where we just ask Pac Kilby kind of an X's and O's question or scenario and let him talk about it a little bit. And this week's is going to be about what Coach Davis said after the Miami game, where it's like, hey, we're going to make some changes and we're going to be ready to find ways to get Mando the ball better against NC State and other things. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. All right, so Unpacking It with Pac Kilby. Here's the question. What changes did we see against NC State? Because I think to the general college basketball fan, there was not much there on Sunday. Clearly not any overt personnel changes, which you and I thought was probably the biggest candidate for what we might see. We did, however, though, see some subtle scheme changes here and there, some different things the Tar Heels did. And so first, Pac, I want to ask you what you saw in the NC State game that you thought was different, no matter how big or small. And then following that, I want to circle back around and say, all right, you, my friend, are Hubert Davis. What changes would you have made or would you still make going forward this season. So let's start there. What did you see against NC State?
A lot of what I saw against NC State was defensively. I thought the way we covered their pick and roll game, Hubert and staff were basically saying, I don't think you can beat us on mid-range. We're going to dare you to do it. And I thought we stuck to that pretty well. And I was decently proud of that. I thought we forced a lot of mid-range out of their pick and roll game. I thought I liked the rotation early on, and then kind of like always, he kind of went away from it, and I thought we were going to see a positive change for that, and then we kind of went away from that. But defensively, I really liked what we did. Offensively, I thought, and this, Isaac, this may sound crazy. I'd be curious what you think about it. I thought he kind of simplified things against it. In the past, he's ran a lot of things. He has a very large playbook, a lot of different sets that he runs. We didn't see a lot of it against NC State. It was almost like paralysis by analysis. Let's slim down a little bit and just go with a few things and see how that does. And then I thought we looked really stagnant. So to me, those are things I noticed. What about you?
Yeah, I like that. I like that simplification idea because it feels like with a group this talented and experienced, the more I either like sets with multiple options off of it or allowing more freelance or free Nance, let's free Pete Nance, allowing more freelance options, I think could open it up for this team whom we've wondered about, like we've heard people saying, like, it feels like they know where we're going or what our sets are going to be. And so it's like the unpredictability of freelance, I think could serve them well. And so I love that. The biggest thing that I noticed subtly was Carolina has obviously struggled transitionally to get buckets, and they went to the Kendall Marshall-esque pitch ahead, which worked well on multiple occasions. But it wasn't consistent throughout the game, but we saw 2 or 3 examples of that. And so I like that, those kind of tweaks of like, hey, we're not going to put in massive changes, but what could we do to free ourselves up in transition? Don't try to, like, Carolina isn't moving the ball quickly up the court with the dribble, use the pass. And so I thought that went well, but I'd like to see more of it, and I know you can't just fling it on ahead willy-nilly, but finding other little nuances like that to make a difference, I think could be good.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to see us use the pass more in transition. The ball, for those of you that don't know, which most of you probably do, the ball moves so much faster off the pass than it does off the dribble. And to me, I think that's something I really missed from the Roy Williams era, is pushing that ball on the pitch heads and just seeing what we can get early. Even if it's nothing, we at least tried it.
You probed. That's right.
Set up, we run our stuff. I would love to see that.
Yeah. And then it winds up, the half-court offense too often gets bogged down with nothingness. And the ball, we mentioned this earlier, but the ball is kind of sticking and not moving. Well, Pac, give me a couple all right, NC State game aside now, give me a couple things that you as a coach, this is where we're really unpacking it with Pac, that you would have either already changed, after Coach Davis talked about that in the Miami game, that you would have changed for the NC State game, or that you're like, all right, we tried a couple things, now here's where I would go next. Versus Notre Dame tonight, or in preparation for Virginia on Saturday. Just give us a couple things that you as a coach, if you were in Hubert Davis' position, would do.
Well, for one, I really would love to see Jalen get more minutes. And I'm going to talk a lot about some of the playing time stuff. I think Jalen needs to play more, period. Especially given that Pete hasn't produced the way we needed him to. And I mean, the reality of it is it's a statistics-based game, and they don't lie. And when stats aren't matching what they need to, it's time to try somebody else. Hubert owes that to the team to give them the best chance. And I would insert Jalen there. The second thing I think is that we struggle to shoot the ball. I think Tyler Nickel can really shoot the ball. I think we should try that.
Wait, so you're telling me this kid can shoot the ball really well. Let's see if he can?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. I'm in for that.
I know that sounds crazy. It's
Again, as you said earlier, easier said than done, but.
Sure. And I know the knock is, I wonder if Tyler can guard consistently. Well, you don't have to wonder if Caleb can. He can't, and.
Or at least hasn't. Let me say it that way. Yeah.
Hasn't. Nance hasn't consistently. What do we have to lose by giving Nickel a shot? I think he could really help us in the shooting department. If nothing else, he stretches the floor and opens it up for Bacot some more. That's my 2 cents on that. Like we mentioned earlier, I'd love to see some transition. True Carolina, get out and run, push, see if we get something early basketball. Would love to see that. But I would also love to see us make some adjustments defensively with some things that I feel like we've really struggled to keep the ball in front. Why not look at more of a pack line system instead of being out, denying one pass away and giving up dribble penetration, which leads to a collapsed defense, which leads to other teams having breakout nights against Carolina, which happens literally every time we play. It seems like some random guy just has his career night against us. But a lot of that is seriously because we struggle to guard the basketball. And I would like to see us make some adjustments in that regard as well.
Okay. Great stuff. You love to see it. Some things there from Coach Pac Kilby on both sides of the court, I guess I should say. And so are we going to see any of that instituted? I don't know. You talked about Jalen Washington in his minutes. Coach Davis had some things to say about that in his weekly ACC media availability earlier this week. And so it's like this weird mystery where I'm super curious to see what are they going to do, right? Like anything could happen. Let's try stuff. Because at this point, I feel like we said this going in the NC State game as well. At this point, you're already on the outside looking in. So throw caution to the wind and let's do something, right? I think that's the point I'm at is like, I'd rather go out swinging than go out put with the bat on my shoulder is how I think I want to say that to end it. So we start with baseball terminology, magic numbers 5, and we end with some baseball terminology. Get the bat off your shoulder, swing it. Let's see what can happen. Great stuff from Pac Kilby. As always, thank you, Coach. That's it, friends, for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have that review for you from the Notre Dame game. Hopefully a happy review and not another counseling session with Uncle Isaac, but we'll see. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. You can follow Pac at Coach_K23 and me at Isaac Schade. As always, you can email the show lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Let's get those Heel of the Week nominations coming in. And for your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball, where myself and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know from the college basketball landscape in 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and anywhere else you get podcasts. Hey, we really appreciate you joining us for today's episode, and we want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace.